we'll continue with where we left last time. We were discussing main profits. We are on the definition sections. Today we'll cover the definitions part and maybe a few provisions thereafter. All right. So we were discussing main profits. So what are main profits? And so I'm going to put out 2-3 questions to you regarding main profits, regarding what we discussed. Then I'm going to explain some examples to you regarding main profits, and then we'll move on with the following definitions, with the other definitions, right? So what are main profits? Do main profits include gross profits, or do they include net profits? And yeah, so first these 2 questions. So what are main profits?
And main profits are the profits earned by the person who is in wrongful possession of the property. Property here is a immovable property. And ma'am, it also includes interest. So it is a net profit, net amount.
Okay, yes. Does anybody would like to add on this? Sarthak, does it include gross profits or net profits?
Ma'am, I'm not sure about what is net or gross profit, ma'am, but it includes profit as well as interest on that profit.
Okay. Okay, it includes profit as well as interest on those profits. So does it include profits which are made due to improvements carried out by a person in wrongful possession?
No.
No, ma'am, I do not include that.
Which means it is not gross profit. It is basically whatever costs that a person in wrongful possession has incurred. Those costs have to be deducted. Those profits have to be deducted from the gross overall profits, and therefore it includes the net profits, right? Understood the difference between gross and net? Gross is basically your total profits, your cumulative profits. But when you deduct a few things, such as deduct the profits made due to improvements by a person, then you are coming to the net profits and not the gross profits. Okay? But then what are main profits? As the name suggests, it's a kind of profit. And what is the kind of profit? Which means someone who was in wrongful possession of a property and continue to remain in wrongful possession of the property, any profits that such person received while such person was in wrongful possession will be deemed to be main profits. Now, which is the principle that we spoke about in the last class, which says that these main profits have to be compensated to the other party, restored to the other party who is the rightful owner of the property. On what principle are we saying? Why do we have something like this in law? Why do we have the concept of main profits? Yes, Komal?
No one should benefit from the efforts done by the other.
Okay.
Something of that sort.
Something of that sort, yes, something of that sort. Have you heard of principle of unjust enrichment?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Pranav, can you explain me what is the principle of unjust enrichment?
Ma'am, so I think it's a principle derived from contract law. It states that according to this principle, one person cannot benefit at the cost of other person, basically.
Right. So if someone has been in wrongful possession of a property, then should you be allowed to keep the and so suppose you've been in wrongful possession of the property for 6 months, right? And thereafter the property is restored to the rightful owner. But if that is the only remedy that the rightful owner gets, then the person who was in wrongful possession of the property has basically unjustly enriched herself or himself, because that person could retain the profits that such a person earned while that person was in wrongful possession of the property. So therefore, to prevent unjust enrichment, whenever you file a suit for restoration of the property, you can also file a relief stating that all the main profits, that means that all the profits which a person in wrongful possession of the property received at that time should be restored to the person, to the rightful owner. Okay? So this is to prevent unjust enrichment. Now we discussed a few examples. मतलब कि those examples की किस context में main profits का situation बनता है. ठीक है? One was a landlord tenant example. Now who recollects कि लैंडलॉर्ड टेनेंट एग्जांपल में कैसे मेन प्रॉफिट्स बनेंगे?
Ma'am, if a tenant is ordered to be evicted,
then
and don't pay the amount for rent, then it is an unjust enrichment on the part of the tenant.
okay.
Landlord should be given the main profits.
Masoom, I know this is your first class, but you want to give, are you clear with the concept of main profits?
Ma'am, I thought that I have seen all the videos, but I missed the previous one, mean profit.
Okay, but I explained again what is the main. So you have some foundation of CPC because you've seen classes, and
Yes,
we are on the
ma'am.
definition section only, so we haven't covered much. So we're discussing main profits, which is defined in section 2 clause 12. ठीक है, वो हमने डिस्कस कर लिया कि अगर कोई भी बंदा is someone who is in wrongful possession of the property, that person receives any profits, then you are bound to restore those profits to the rightful owner. Now let's discuss it in the context of an example. Now there are two parties, there is a landlord and there is a tenant. The tenant has failed to pay her or his rent for a period of 6 months. ठीक है, because you have failed, landlord gets an order of eviction. Eviction मतलब कि अब आपको प्रॉपर्टी से निकाल दिया जाएगा. ठीक है, but the tenant continues to stay in that place. And now the tenant is not just staying himself, the tenant has further sublet the property also. So after an order of eviction, if the tenant is continue to stay and continues to sublet the property, is the tenant, will we say that the tenant is in wrongful possession of the property? क्योंकि eviction का order आ चुका है. ठीक है, अगर आपके अगेंस्ट eviction का order आ गया, that means you should not be in possession of the premises. ठीक है?
Yes, ma'am.
You should not be in possession. But if you continue to use the premises, that means you are in wrongful possession of the property.
Yes.
ठीक है, अब tenant ने उसको further sublet किया हुआ है, which means tenant का भी subtenant है. So which means that the tenant is earning some profits. तो जब भी तो लैंडलॉर्ड क्या कहेगा कि एक तो आप मेरा wrongful possession में जो हो, आप मुझे वो राइट, आप मुझे रिस्टोर करो मेरी प्रॉपर्टी की पोजेशन. ठीक है, because you are in wrongful possession. After an order of eviction has been passed, you cannot stay in the premises, so therefore restore my property. Next, whatever profits that you earned while you were in wrongful possession have to be restored to the landlord. ठीक है, so whatever profits that the tenant earned from the subtenant, आप see, अगर आपका January 1 से June तक tenant was paying the rent and so the subtenant was paying the rent to the tenant. ठीक है, अब जून से आपने पे करना बंद कर दिया, जुलाई में आपका eviction order आ गया. अब जुलाई के बाद, जुलाई से अक्टूबर के बीच में सबटेनेंट ने जो भी टेनेंट को पे किया है, will that be included in main profits?
Yes, ma'am. As an interest.
Yes, that will be included in main profits. But क्या January to June, will that also have to be compensated to the landlord? Okay, the floor is open to anyone to answer. जो subtenant ने tenant को rent दिया from January onwards to June, will that have to be restored to the landlord? Pranav, have you understood my question?
Ma'am, can you please repeat the facts, ma'am?
Okay, okay. So there are three parties in this situation. There is a landlord, tenant, and a subtenant. Landlord enters into an agreement with the tenant, and January 1 से उनका commence होता है. So the tenant is allowed to further sublet the premises. ठीक है? तो January to June everything is hunky dory. ठीक है? So the tenant has been paying rent to the landlord, and tenant ने further sublet किया हुआ है. ठीक है? July onwards, tenant has not paid any rent. So what the landlord does in September is कि लैंडलॉर्ड जाके बोलता है कि जुलाई ऑनवर्ड से उसको इविक्शन हो जाना चाहिए. ठीक है, अब उसके बाद उन्होंने टेनेंट ने पोजेशन रिस्टोर नहीं किया लैंडलॉर्ड को. सो अक्टूबर में जब ऑर्डर आ गया कि अब आपको इविक्ट करनी है प्रॉपर्टी, टेनेंट ने हैंडओवर नहीं की प्रॉपर्टी. ठीक है, अब अगर टेनेंट ने हैंडओवर नहीं की, कंटिन्यूज टू रिमेन इन पोजेशन, उसके साथ सब टेनेंट भी रहा. ठीक है, अब अक्टूबर टू जनवरी सब टेनेंट ने टेनेंट को तो पैसा रेंट दिया ना, ठीक है, आर वी क्लियर ऑन द फैक्ट्स नाउ?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
ठीक है,
ma'am.
now from whatever that tenant earned from October to January, is that included in main profits?
Yes, ma'am.
That is included in main profits. And whatever the subtenant paid to the tenant from January to June, Sarthak, will that be included in main profits?
No, ma'am, because at that time he was not ordered by the court to evict.
Exactly, because the condition precedent for the applicability of the main profits wala concept is that the person should be in wrongful possession of the property. At that time, there was no wrongful possession. So there is no concept of main profits. There's no question of main profits which will come into the picture. It is only when after an order of eviction has been issued and you continue to remain in possession, then you will be said to be in wrongful possession. If you earned any interest during the period of wrongful possession, then you have to restore that. Now, suppose from in the same fact situation, let's modify it a little bit. Okay. So suppose from October to January, the tenant further made some improvements in the house in the sense that aapne wherever some repairs were needed, the tenant carried out repairs, and the tenant made the tenant planted a few seeds in the garden. He made a vegetable garden and everything, due to which the subtenant even enhanced the rent that the subtenant was paying to the tenant. So will this enhanced rent be also included in the main profits which have to be restored to the landlord?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am.
No,
As
right?
it should be net profit.
Because whatever improvements, whatever profit that even a person in wrongful possession made due to their own due to some improvements that they carry down with their own effort, they have to be excluded from the concept of main profits. Okay, so it's a very simple concept, but it's a very frequently asked question in the exam. So you need to define what are main profits, define it in pointers, give an example of main profits, because that is what sets you apart. Because 2 clause 12 सबको पता होगा. ठीक है, when you start giving examples, वहां पर आपको extra brownie points मिलते हैं. ठीक है, and then we were discussing, and then I'm going to take you to one more complicated example. Landlord tenant is a very basic example. अब मैं आपको mortgage suit में बताऊंगी कि मेन प्रॉफिट्स कैसे अप्लाई होता है. ठीक है, एंड द रीजन आई एम गोना कनेक्ट दिस विद मेन प्रॉफिट्स इज क्योंकि जब मेन प्रॉफिट्स का जब आपका एग्जाम में आंसर आएगा, इफ यू आर एबल टू एक्सप्लेन कि फोरक्लोजर सूट में और रिडेम्पशन सूट में आप कैसे मेन प्रॉफिट्स अप्लाई कर रहे हो, it will definitely set you apart. You know, the examiner will think कि अच्छा यार ये तो बच्चे को बहुत ज्यादा आता है. ठीक है, तो let's try and understand. It's slightly difficult, but bear with me. If you want, I'll repeat the concept again. ठीक है. Now, what do you mean by mortgage and what is meant by hypothecation? पहले हम इस चीज में अपना कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर करेंगे. What do we mean by mortgage?
Ma'am, to secure some amount, a property is given as a mortgage to the mortgagee as a security.
Yes.
And ma'am, in hypothecation, the possession remains with the mortgager.
And mortgage is basically with respect to which property, movable or immovable?
Immovable property.
Okay, mortgage is with respect to immovable property. Say your land is an immovable property, your house is an immovable property. So I want to secure a education loan. Okay, I want to go abroad and do my masters. So what I do is I mortgage my ancestral house and then I borrow some money, keeping my ancestral house as security, and then I use that money to pay for my education abroad. Okay, so basically I have done a mortgage. Over here I am a mortgager, and the person to whom I mortgaged my ancestral house is what is that party called?
Mortgagee.
ठीक है, अब क्या होता है कि अब within 12, अब suppose I have to repay that loan within 12 years. ठीक है, repay that principal amount plus interest. So if I had borrowed 1 crore rupees on the basis of my ancestral house, I have to repay 1 crore plus 10 lakhs. ठीक है, 1 crore is my principal amount, 10 lakhs is my interest that will accumulate over the period of years. ठीक है, so I have to repay with all of this within a period of 12 years. If I do not repay, will the mortgagee get any right against me?
Ma'am, to foreclose the property which has been mortgaged.
Exactly. So which means that the mortgagee can then
Application
take
for
over the...
foreclosure.
Yes.
Application for foreclosure can be.
Yes. So which means that the mortgagee can then take over that property, take over the security. So my ancestral house is my security, which means the entire transaction is that I have taken a loan, and if I do not repay the loan, then you can take over my security, right? So if I do not repay the loan, then the mortgagee gets the right to take over my ancestral house. Then the mortgagee can sell my ancestral house, and whatever proceeds are required. So if my house is sold for 1 crore 20 lakhs, then the mortgagee can keep 1 crore 12 lakhs in order to satisfy the amount which is due against the mortgager. ठीक है, तो फिर इसको हम क्या कहते हैं? फोरक्लोजर सूट कहते हैं. ठीक है, आप एक एप्लीकेशन फाइल करते हैं कि मॉर्गेजी फाइल करेगा कि मॉर्गेजर ने सही टाइम पे लोन और इंटरेस्ट रीपे नहीं किया, प्रिंसिपल और इंटरेस्ट रीपे नहीं किया, therefore I am taking over the property, and so they will file an application for foreclosure. Yes, Sarthak.
Ma'am, what is hypothecation? Can you explain it, ma'am? Hypothecation.
Hypothecation, Sarthak, is basically with respect to movable property. जैसे हम ये कह रहे हैं ना, mortgage is with respect to immovable property. Hypothecation में आप अपनी हो सकता है jewelry को hypothecate कर दें. So that is with respect to movable property.
And ma'am, in hypothecation, with the property remains with whom?
Hypothecation, it can have different variants also, no? So it is basically, it can have very different variants. It's basically about the kind of property which is involved. In mortgage, it is immovable property which is involved. Hypothecation, it is movable property which is involved. Okay?
Ma'am, then hypothecation is how different from pledge?
Hypothecation, how is it different from pledge? Okay. Does anybody would like to answer
Yes, ma'am.
that? Who would like to answer? Okay. Now, what do you know about vehicle loans? What happens in a vehicle loan? See, now the difference between mortgage and hypothecation is with respect to the kind of property which is involved. In mortgage, it is immovable property which is involved, and in hypothecation, it is movable property which is involved. Now, a very interesting question is, what is then the difference between hypothecation and what is the difference between pledge? In these cases, both in these cases, दोनों में ही movable property involved है. ठीक है, तो hypothecation को समझने के लिए हम क्या एग्जाम्पल लेंगे? हम व्हीकल लोन का एग्जाम्पल लेंगे. तो व्हीकल लोन में क्या होता है? मैंने एक नई गाड़ी खरीदी, I bought a new car and I took a loan against that, but I'm driving the car and I'm paying the installments. तो मेरे पास तो I'm the borrower, right? But the car is in my possession. ठीक है, तो ये किस में होगा? हाइपोथेकेशन में कि प्लेज में?
Hypothecation.
हाइपोथेकेशन में. सो जो लेंडर है उसी के पोजेशन में एसेट रहता है हाइपोथेकेशन में. ठीक है, क्लियर?
Yes, sir.
Whereas pledge में वो चला जाता है. तो pledge, if you understand it with respect to a gold loan, and hypothecation you can understand with respect to a vehicle loan. So when you understand it with respect to an example, वो दिमाग आपको वो चीज आपको ज्यादा टाइम तक याद रहेगी. Because see, whenever you think of a vehicle loan, the lender continues to drive the vehicle, but at the same time keeps paying installments. So that is hypothecation. Now coming back, we were discussing what is a mortgage suit. Okay, so we are discussing main profits. मेन प्रॉफिट्स में मैंने डिस्कस किया कि मॉर्गेज सूट में कैसे मेन प्रॉफिट्स की एप्लीकेबिलिटी हो सकती है. ठीक है, बिकॉज अगर हम मेन प्रॉफिट्स का आंसर लिखेंगे और उसके बाद हम फोरक्लोजर और रिडेम्पशन सूट का एग्जांपल देंगे तो आपको इट विल सेट योर आंसर अपार्ट. ठीक है, तो अब हमने कहा कि मॉर्गेजी ने एप्लीकेशन फॉर फोरक्लोजर डाली, because the mortgagor was not able to repay, and that application was pursued, was allowed, and mortgagee is entitled, was then allowed to take over the property. ठीक है, अब उसके बाद क्या हुआ? अब mortgagee is allowed to take over the property. If the mortgagor continues to enjoy the possession of the property, can we say that the mortgagor is in wrongful possession of the property?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है, और अगर मेरी एग्रीकल्चरल लैंड है जिसकी मैं बात कर रही हूँ, ठीक है, और अगर मेरी एग्रीकल्चरल लैंड पे क्रॉप्स ग्रो हो रहे हैं, उनको मैं हार्वेस्ट कर रही हूँ, mortgagee's foreclosure suit has been allowed, but I am still in possession of the agricultural land and I'm harvesting crops and I'm selling them in the open market and I'm earning profits out of that. So is the mortgagee entitled to main profits from me?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है, तो foreclosure suit में इस तरीके से main profits will be applicable. Now redemption suit क्या होगा? I've explained you what is foreclosure. What will be a redemption suit? ठीक है, I'll explain you what is a redemption suit. Then you explain me redemption suit में किसको main profits मिलेंगे. ठीक है. Now suppose coming back to the same example, मैंने अपना ancestral house या मैंने अपनी agricultural land को mortgage किया, उसके बेसिस पे उसकी सिक्योरिटी यूज करके मैंने लोन लिया. ठीक है, मॉर्गेजी ने मुझे लोन लिया. विद इन 12 years आई एम एबल टू रीपे माय प्रिंसिपल अमाउंट एंड माय इंटरेस्ट. तो मैंने क्या डाला? एप्लीकेशन फॉर रिडेम्पशन, कि अब आप मेरी सिक्योरिटी को रिडीम कर दीजिए, लेट मी टेक ओवर माय सिक्योरिटी. बट मॉर्गेजी कंटिन्यूज टू remain in, after my redemption suit is allowed also, mortgagee continues to remain in possession of my house and my land. Can we say that the mortgagee is in wrongful possession of my property?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है,
Yes, ma'am.
तो इसमें आप किस तरीके से कहेंगे? So will the mortgagee in such a case be entitled to main profits?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है, तो
Yes, ma'am.
तो उस तरीके से आप ऐसे अपने आंसर को लिख सकते हैं. ठीक है, तो इसमें आप लिख लीजिए मेन प्रॉफिट्स is applicable in foreclosure suits, redemption suits between landlord and tenant, and all these kind of suits. ठीक है, it's an important section. 2 clause 12 से questions पूछे जाते हैं मेंस में, right? So moving on, let's move to the next provision. ठीक है, 2 clause 13. Now what is yes, Sarthak, you have a question.
Ma'am, a small question, ma'am. While writing the answers, ma'am, do we have to explain the whole process of foreclosure and redemption, or we can simply state that after foreclosure order has been given by the court, then the possession will be wrongful?
See, depends on the marks which is assigned to a particular question. If it's an 8 marks question, then आप 2 लाइनों में foreclosure suit explain करके कहते हो. If it's like a 4 marks question, then I would say after an application after a foreclosure suit has been passed in favor of a party, if the other party continues to remain in possession, then the former party is entitled to main profits. तो आप इस तरीके से लिखते हो. It's always depends on the marks which is assigned to a question. ठीक है, ठीक है. So अच्छा, हाँ, so moving on. ठीक है. So now what do you understand by the terms immovable property and movable property? In basic English, if you have to distinguish these terms, how will you do it?
Ma'am, can you please repeat the question?
What do you understand by the terms immovable property and movable property? आपको अगर distinguish करना है, then how will you do the distinction? Yes, Masoom, do you want to try?
मूवेबल और इमूवेबल में अगर बहुत सिंपली कहें तो मूवेबल जिसको एक स्थान से दूसरे स्थान पे ले जाया जा सके. जैसे कि कोई बुक है या फिर लैपटॉप या फिर गाड़ी या कटी हुई लकड़ी का गट्ठा, या और इमूवेबल दैट इज अटैच्ड टू द लैंड, जिसको वहां से ना हिलाया जा सके. बहुत सिंपली शब्द में जैसे लैंड हो गया, या फिर कोई ऐसी चीज जो लैंड में इस तरीके से अटैच हो जिसको बिना तोड़े हुए वहां से ना हिलाया जा सके. दैट काइंड ऑफ थिंग.
Very good, very good, very nicely explained. Immovable property वो होती है which is permanently attached to the earth. आप उसको आसानी से उखाड़ के लेकर जा नहीं सकते. It's not easy to like move it from one place to another. Whereas movable property is something that you can move from one place to another. तो इसमें हमारे CPC में movable property defined है. Section 2 clause 13 में and it says, what does section 2 clause 13 says? It says movable property includes growing crops. ठीक है, growing crops को मतलब कि if it is a growing crop, which means it is very easy to pluck it and to take it from one place to another. So in our definition of the Civil Procedure Code, we included movable property to include growing crops. Understood? Can you, by the same logic, say, can a tree be also included within the concept of movable property?
No, ma'am.
No. Why not?
It's not a growing crop. And it can't be detached from the earth easily without any damage.
Exactly.
And won't it depend on the purpose of like growing the tree? For example, if a timber is grown for like cutting purpose only, then it can be treated as a movable property as soon as it is cut.
See, but then a timber, that tree is not cut from its roots, right? You cut the branches. You don't uproot the tree. Okay? So वो चीज तो still remains. Whereas growing crops, you can just pluck it and take it from one place to another place and you transplant it. It's very easy. But for a tree to do that for the entire tree, it's very difficult. So वो आप फिर भी in the larger context of immovable में मिला सकते हो. But growing crops, it's, as Komal very rightly said, it's easy to detach them from the earth, and therefore our Civil Procedure Code has included them within the definition of movable property. ठीक है?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we apply the definition of immovable property and movable property as given in the TPA?
See, whenever something is not defined in the Civil Procedure Code, I suggest you go to the General Clauses Act. ठीक है, General Clauses Act में ये definitions दी हुई है, आप उनको apply कीजिए. वरना आप for reference use कर सकते हैं, for understanding use कर सकते हैं. It's not forbidden, but it's always preferable that if it's not defined here, you first go to the General Clauses Act, or you check up, or you look up Black's Law Dictionary, and then you go to the TPA, because then, see, the laws are different, right? And they're talking about different things and they're talking about different contexts. So that way, that should be your order of reference. Okay? All right. So let's, so that is 212 is main profits, 213 is movable property, 214 order we've already studied, and we've studied it in quite detail. So I'm not going to repeat it. And what is 215? Okay. So Masoom, can you read out section 2 clause 15?
No, I don't have bare act.
Okay. But I suggest you always keep a bare act when you're attending class. Okay? And right now you can open an online version of Civil Procedure Code. Pranav, can you read out 2 clause 15?
Yes, ma'am. Pleader means any person entitled to appear and plead for another in court, and includes an advocate, a vakil, and an attorney of a high court.
Okay? It's very clear. As the name suggests, someone who's entitled to appear as an advocate can be called as a pleader. And when will you be entitled to appear as an advocate? जब आपने अपना बार काउंसिल का एग्जाम क्लियर कर लिया होता है, आप एक पूरे वकील बन जाते हो, then you are entitled to appear and plead for another. ठीक है? And ठीक है, and इसमें आपको just for your general, अभी हम order 3 में हम पढ़ेंगे कि अगर if you have to plead for another, you have to do it on the basis of a document, which means I cannot go to the court tomorrow and say that I'm going to plead for Pranav. I will have to present a document to the court to prove that I'm entitled to plead for Pranav. What is that document called?
Wakalatnama.
Wakalatnama. It's called a power of attorney, right? And does it have to be in writing or it can be orally also?
Ma'am, I think it has to be in writing.
Yes. Can it not be orally? Because agency ka contract can be signed orally also, no? And
ma'am, it has to be in writing.
It has to be in writing? Okay. Yes. So power of attorney or wakalatnama has to be in writing. It has to be attached to your petition also. Okay? So basically you can plead for another, but you plead on the basis of a document which is called a wakalatnama, and that has to be in writing. Okay? It's a very simple.
What is meant by attorney of high court here?
Attorney of an high court जैसे advocate general of a high court कह देते हैं ना, like
yes,
Supreme Court में attorney general होते हैं, इधर high court में advocate general हो जाते हैं. ठीक है?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so now what do you mean by, okay, so one word that you will come across in most of the BEL Acts is, it is called prescribed. ठीक है, and prescribed हमेशा definition section में defined होगा और एक ही तरीके से defined होगा. तो अगर आप CPC खोलें या फिर कोई और लॉ खोलें, जैसे आप रेरा खोलेंगे, रियल एस्टेट रेगुलेशन एंड डेवलपमेंट एक्ट, वहां पे भी प्रिस्क्राइब डिफाइंड है और वहां पे भी बिल्कुल वैसे ही डिफाइंड है जैसे CPC में डिफाइंड है. So without reading the definition of prescribed, can you tell me what do you mean? What do you think prescribed would mean?
Ma'am, prescribed as per the rules.
So now elaborate.
Ma'am, there are rules with every code or every act which gives the detailed information how to proceed with the act. So prescribed, where there is a word mentioned prescribed, then it is as per the rules mentioned for the act.
So civil procedure code में rules दिए गए हैं.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Every
Orders have rules. Every order have
Exactly.
rules.
So if order 1 has 13 rules, order 2 has these many rules. So order 2 rule 2 is an important rule. ठीक है. So मतलब कि आप CPC में ये देखोगे कि आपकी provisions, आपकी substance provisions have been given in the sections format, जिसमें आपको दिया गया है कि within 30 days you can file your this thing and all of that. But detailed procedure has been explained in the form of rules. ठीक है. तो यहाँ पे आप देखोगे कि एक आधे सेक्शन में लिखा होगा कि this is the procedure and then as prescribed, which means then it has to be prescribed by the rules. It has to be explained in greater detail by the rules. The procedure has to be has been laid down more elaborately by the rules. अगर हम execution के sections देखेंगे तो execution के sections होंगे 36 to 74 CPC में. But ठीक है, but order 21, which is the corresponding order with respect to the section of 36 to 74, which talk about execution. ठीक है. Order 21 has more than 100 rules. ठीक है. So आप देखोगे कि this is all prescribed by the rules, which is basically laid down in greater detail in more elaboration by the rules. ठीक है. And sometimes now CPC में दिए गए हैं. Rules have been included as part of your code, and that is why it's called a code, right? Because it's a civil procedure code, because the act and the rules have been included together in the format of one code. But कई बार हम देखेंगे जैसे acts like other acts, जिसमें कई बार होता है we have a parent act, and a parent act has been enacted by the central by the parliament. The legislature enacts the act, but the executive has been given the power to make rules. कि कई बार यूनियन गवर्नमेंट या स्टेट गवर्नमेंट पेरेंट एक्ट के बेसिस पे रूल्स एनैक्ट कर सकती है. ठीक है. सो दैट पावर इज आल्सो गिवन इन योर पेरेंट एक्ट, and then your parent act will leave it open ended, and they will say that this is the substance of the provision, and so and in greater detail it has to be prescribed as per the rules which is made by the executive body. ठीक है. तो prescribed इस तरीके से यूज होगा. Understood? Any questions?
Ma'am, is there any difference between advocate and vakil? Because both terms have been used.
It's more of a, I mean, they're different terms which are used in different places. Like आप हो सकता है एक जगह पे advocate use कर रहे हो, एक जगह पे वकील use कर रहे हो. It's basically like an inclusive provision. What is the word? It includes an advocate, वकील, and an attorney of a high court. So it's just आप उस तरीके से कह सकते हो कि वकील may be practicing in the lower courts and this and that. So it's basically like an inclusive provision. हाँ.
Ma'am, as per the Advocates Act, now if earlier times a person is known as vakil, now he is also given the name of advocate. So there is no vakil as such as of now. So I think this provision is redundant.
See, the thing is, जब आप courts में जाओगे, आप still you will hear people calling themselves as वकील्स, right? तो आपको inclusive दिया गया है कि मतलब कि there are different terms which are used for a particular person. तो आपको वो सब कुछ include करके basically ताकि कुछ रह ना जाए. So the pleader is someone who will act on your behalf in a court of law, and that person can be either called a vakil, or such a person can be called an advocate. हम ये देखेंगे, हम लॉ में कॉन्सेप्ट होता है कि nomenclature is not that important, you have to look at the spirit. What do you mean by nomenclature?
Names given to the particular thing or
ठीक है, तो दैट नॉमेनक्लेचर, आप एडवोकेट बोलो, वकील बोलो, इज नॉट इम्पोर्टेंट. स्पिरिट क्या है कि यू आर एंटाइटल्ड टू अपीयर ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ द अदर, बिकॉज आपने एडवोकेट्स एक्ट के सारे रिक्वायरमेंट्स कंप्लीट किए हैं, एंड देयरफॉर इफ समवन गिव्स यू रिटन अथॉरिटी टू अपीयर ऑन देयर बिहाफ, देन यू कैन प्लीड ऑन देयर बिहाफ. ठीक है, अंडरस्टूड?
ओके मैम, थैंक यू.
Okay.
यस मैम.
ठीक है, so now moving on to the last definition, which is given in section 2 clause 17. Okay, now it's a long definition. Now without going through that definition before, now who do you think will be included within the word of a public officer? Do you think as an advocate you are included within the term of a public officer, or as a judge you are included in the term of a public officer?
judge is included in public officer, and the civil servants are also included in a public officer, and advocate is also a public officer, ma'am.
An advocate is a public officer. An advocate is a public officer or an officer of the court?
Ma'am, officer of the court.
Ma'am, but
Exactly.
certain positions like public prosecutor, they hold public officer.
Officer of the
Sorry, Komal, what are you trying to say? See, basically, so some people, so you were saying some advocates will be within the service of the, will be included within the term of public officer. So are those kind of public officers receiving remuneration from the government? Do all advocates receive remuneration from the government, or only certain class of advocates such as the public prosecutor or the advocate general or the attorney general receive
Ma'am, only
remuneration? from
some
the government?
classes.
and certain
Some classes. So if
advocates
you are receiving
receive-
remuneration from the
Yes.
government, then will you be called as a public servant, public officer?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है, so when I say मेरा एक government सरकारी office है, so that is a DC. Okay, let's take the example of a DC office, deputy commissioner का office. So is the deputy commissioner a public servant, public officer? Sorry,
Yes, ma'am.
as per this definition, deputy collector is a public officer. Is the watchman, is the guard, is the security guard of the deputy collector a public officer? Okay, is a jailer a public officer? Okay, let's read. Yes, Pranav.
Ma'am, I think by virtue of subclause E, jailer can be said to be a public officer.
Jailer can be a public officer. Okay, let's read out. So Sarthak, will you read out 2 clause 17?
Yes, ma'am. 2 clause 17. Public officer means a person falling under the following categories, descriptions, namely: A, every judge; B, every member of an all India service; C, every commissioned or gazetted officer in the military, naval, or air forces of the union while serving under the government; D, every officer of a court of justice whose duty it is as such officer to investigate or report on any matter of law or fact, or to make or authenticate or keep any document, or to take charge or dispose of any property, or to execute any judicial process, or to administer any oath, or to interpret or to preserve order in the order in the court, and every person especially authorized by court of justice to perform any of such duties. E, every person who holds any office by virtue of which he is empowered to place or keep any person in confinement. F, every officer of the government whose duty it is as such officer to prevent offences, to give information of offences, to bring offenders to justice, or to
protect the public health, safety, or convenience. G. Every officer whose duty it is as such officer to take, receive, keep, or expend any property on behalf of the government, or to make any survey, assessment, or contract on behalf of the government, or to execute any revenue process, or to investigate or to report any matter affecting the pecuniary interest of the government, or to make authenticate or keep any document relating to the pecuniary interest of the government, or to prevent the infraction of any law for the protection of the pecuniary interest of the government. And H. Every officer in the service or pay of the government or remunerated by the fees or commission for the performance of any public duty.
Now, okay. Now, do you think it's an inclusive definition or an exclusive definition?
Ma'am, it's an inclusive definition.
Inclusive. आप बहुत सारे लोगों को public officer की definition में ला रहे हो. So, इसमें do you think is it on the basis of where you are receiving your salary, or on the basis of what kind of work that you're doing are we included in the definition of a public officer?
Ma'am, it is
On the basis of what kind of work?
Okay, what kind of work? Yes, Pranav?
Yes, ma'am. I was saying the same thing, that it's on the basis of kind of work, because the office of a public officer is like a very important post, because he's also accountable to the general public for whatever duties he's discharging. So it's on the basis of kind of work.
But then what does section 217 clause H say?
Ma'am, every officer in the service or pay of the government.
Is it on the basis of where you're receiving your salary?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है, तो मतलब कि दोनों की तरफ हो गया ना. So also on the kind of work that you're doing, because see, अच्छा now अगर court में there is a person who gives you certified copies, ठीक है. If you've done litigation at any point of time, आपने देखा होगा कि हमें एक सर्टिफाइड, जब कोर्ट का एक ऑर्डर बन जाता है देन वो ऑनलाइन अपलोड कर देते हैं, बट हमें उसकी एक सर्टिफाइड कॉपी लेनी पड़ती है, विच मीन्स यहाँ पे स्टैंप लगा होगा कि ऑथेंटिकेट किया होगा कि हाँ ये इसी कोर्ट का ऑर्डर है. सो द पर्सन हु गिव्स यू अ सर्टिफाइड कॉपी, इज सच अ पर्सन अ पब्लिक ऑफिसर?
Ma'am, as per section 7D.
D. ठीक है, to make, authenticate or to keep any document in a court of justice. ठीक है, so such person will become a public officer. Now such person is becoming a public officer by virtue of the definition given in 2 clause 17, and such person is becoming a public officer by virtue of the kind and nature of the work that person is doing. ठीक है, बट अगर हम 2H में देखें, सो इसमें अगर आप कहीं से भी सरकार से आप रेम्यूनरेशन ले रहे हो, सरकार से आप फी ले रहे हो, या सरकार से आप कमीशन ले रहे हो, देन डू यू बिकम अ पब्लिक ऑफिसर?
Ma'am, it should be for performance of public duty, then it is a public office.
So whenever there is a performance of a public duty and उसके लिए आप सरकार से कुछ भी कंसल्टेंसी फी ले रहे हो या कुछ भी on a case to case fee भी ले रहे हो, when it is for the public duty, even then you become a public officer. ठीक है? So here the overwhelming this thing is on the kind of work that you're doing, but even see when you're acting in the capacity of a public prosecutor and you're taking remuneration from the government, you are carrying out a public duty. How are you carrying out public duty? Because the prosecution of the criminals is the responsibility of the state. And as a public prosecutor, you are representing the state in prosecuting criminals. So we are carrying out a public duty. So you become a public officer because of the nature of the work that you do, but also because of the salary, also because even if you're getting paid by the government in terms of salary, remuneration, fees, and it's coming from the government, even that goes on to make you a public officer. ठीक है, तो दोनों होगा, पर ज्यादा of course on the kind of work that you do. Understood?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, does the judicial clerks
Sorry?
come, ma'am? There are judicial clerks in the High Court and the Supreme Court. Does they qualify as public officer?
Okay. Now, can you reason it out? Reason out for and against.
Ma'am, for as if they are getting this government and they are working in the assistance of the court, so they should be.
Okay. Does somebody have a counter view to that? See, can you say that a judicial clerk is working is doing something which is for the performance of any public duty?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you say the stenographer of a judge is performing a public duty?
No, ma'am. I don't think that we can say that a stenographer or like a judicial clerk is sort of performing a public duty, because, ma'am, when we say that a public duty is being performed, then it also involves certain kind of like responsibility which would like adversely affect the public directly. So for instance, if a judge gives out a sort of like wrong decision or a decision which goes contrary to the public interest, then his decision has certain repercussions. Similarly, if a public prosecutor does not perform his duty up to a certain benchmark, then the criminal may go scot-free. So when we say that a public duty is being attached, it means that if that duty is not performed, then it will have consequences and the public interest will be affected, which is not the case in case of judicial clerk or stenographer.
Okay, what happens is that the judge has dictated his judgment to a stenographer. Okay, usually judgment writing कैसे होती है? Judge will dictate and it is noted by a stenographer. Stenographer ने judge ने बोला amount 10 lakhs. Stenographer ने 1 0 कम कर दिया deliberately. तो क्या होगा? Is it
it will direct to public?
It is what?
Ma'am, it will affect the parties.
It will affect the parties. It will have consequences affecting the public.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree with it, Pranav?
Ma'am, but if we were to follow like such a wide definition of public duty and public officer, ma'am, then where will we stop? Like, where will we draw the line then?
See, the thing is, when we started discussing the section, we said कि हाँ थोड़ा inclusive section तो है. It includes a public officer, बहुत inclusive आपने define किया हुआ है. So this is what the act says. But of course, when I say I'm working in an MNC, I'm not a public officer. If I'm teaching at Law Seekho, I don't come within the definition of a public officer. So ऐसा नहीं है that it is so inclusive that it includes every Tom, Dick and Harry. ऐसा नहीं है. Not every, I mean, it doesn't include every person under the sun, right? So there are people who will get excluded even by virtue of this definition. But when you can say by implication, you can say that such a person working in such a capacity is carrying out such a role which is integral to carrying out a public duty and is receiving remuneration from the government, and then you can argue that. Okay?
All right, ma'am, understood.
Okay? And then so we have 3 more definitions. So this is about public officer. So public officer की जैसे एक public officer की यहाँ पे definition है, एक public servant is defined in IPC. तो ये दोनों definitions काफी long है और prelims में ये वाले questions पूछ लेते हैं कई बार. तो एक बार अच्छे से पढ़ लेना है. जैसे members of the defense services, every commissioned and gazetted members of the defense services are included within the definition of a public officer. तो ठीक है, एक बार ये पब्लिक सर्वेंट और पब्लिक सर्वेंट की आईपीसी में पब्लिक ऑफिसर की यहाँ पे एक बार अच्छे से पढ़ना बिफोर योर प्रीलिम्स. यस सार्थक.
मैम सरपंच आएगा इसके अंदर पब्लिक ऑफिसर में सरपंच.
अच्छा, सो वेयर डू यू थिंक अगर सरपंच आएगा तो कैसे आएगा? व्हाट डू यू थिंक?
मैम सरपंच इज मैम म्युनिसिपल का भी जो आगे एक्सटेंशन होता है. सरपंच हैज बीन ग्रांटेड दैट ड्यूटी मैम, बट आई एम नॉट अवेयर अबाउट एनी रेम्यूनरेशन बीन गिवन टू सरपंच with regard to duty he is doing.
Can you say a MLA or an MP is a public officer?
MLA or MP? Ma'am, I'm not sure about that too. Ma'am, I don't think so that they will be.
No, ma'am, I don't think like an MLA or MP is a public officer, because it is like not a post which that MP or MLA is holding. He's just representing the people.
Ma'am, public officers, as they are getting the salary from the government, and they should act on the behalf of the public and for the benefit of public.
See, if you look at A, B, C, D, E, F, G, उसमें आपको अगर आप MLA, MP देखो तो आप कहीं भी fit कर पा रहे हो. H मत, don't read H right now, till G. Can you fit MLA anywhere? MLA or an MP? The first part is judge. The second part is members of the All India Services. The third part is commissioned and gazetted officers of the defense services. And the fourth is some of the officers of the Court of Justice. The fifth is officers. So every person who holds, so fifth E part is every person who holds an office by virtue of which is empowered to place or keep any person in confinement. Will a Havaldar come under to E part?
Yes, ma'am.
Havaldar इसमें आ जाएगा, ठीक है. Then the F part is कि every officer's duty is to prevent offences, give information, and the G part is to who's basically carrying out certain roles for the government. अगर आप जाके land revenue collect कर रहे हो, आप जाके property को assess कर रहे हो, आप decide कर रहे हो कि government property को expend कैसे करना है, so all these people will be included within the definition of public officers. तो इसमें कहीं भी आपको लगता है कि ये politician, MLA, MP will be included?
No, ma'am.
नहीं होगा. And a sarpanch will be something which is an extension only, क्योंकि we have local body elections. So sarpanch वगैरह they are now elected people, okay, elected representatives. So उनका electorate छोटा होता है, but nevertheless they are also part of the system, because हमने decentralization कर दिया था. I think 12th ये 1992 में हुआ था ना decentralization, and then we gave certain powers to the local bodies, and उसके बाद हमने ये सारी post बना दी, मतलब कि these were posts that people had to contest for, and then they win elections, and that happens. So whatever logic that you apply to MLA, MP will also be applicable to a sarpanch. ठीक है, तो 2A to G में आप कहीं भी fit नहीं कर पा रहे हो. Now what remains is 2H. Now what do you think? In 2H, can you include a politician in 2H?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yes. Why yes and why no? There can be two sides to it. In law, you can always argue both ways.
Ma'am, they get their remuneration from the government, and they have and same way MLA has a duty to represent the society and do their public duty.
Yes. Anybody who would like to present a counter view? Yes, Sarthak. Yes, Pranav, Masoom. Anybody who would like to give it a try?
Ma'am, according to me also, ma'am, the members of parliament get some allowances from the government themselves. And ma'am, on the other hand, what they do is they legislate, they come, they argue, and they present the views of the public in the parliamentary domain. So ma'am, according to me, ma'am, they are, if in a way we see on a broader level, we can say that they are doing the work of government and as well as collecting allowances for the same.
Okay. So anybody else want to give it a try? Okay. So why not, when in doubt, yeah. Sorry?
Yeah, ma'am, I was saying that I am agree with these views that both the elements are met. Like they are performing public duty and they are being paid by the government as well. So therefore.
So therefore, they can be under the description of a public officer. Okay. So एक बार, see, before you come to a conclusion regarding this, because it's a very good argument to bring them within the ambit of a public officer, but there is a counter viewpoint also. Counter viewpoint क्या हो गया कि are they basically do they form part of the executive, or are they an officer? Are they, basically can you say that anybody who's receiving remuneration from the government, but there is also a term called officer, right? So officer, you can include like someone who's working like an IAS officer as an officer. You never refer to a MLA as an officer. You always refer to an MLA as an executive boss. You don't refer to an MLA as an officer. So you need to reconcile this thing. ठीक है? तो वो आपको किस में देखना पड़ेगा? You will have to look up some case laws. तो case laws में देखकर ये पता चल जाएगा, इससे clarity आ जाएगी whether MLA, MP or Sarpanch will be included within the definition of a public officer. Now, who would like to volunteer? I will obviously speak about it in the next class, but who would like to volunteer to do some case law research and then present their views in the next class? It's going to be fun, not very time consuming, and I'm going to take it up. Like, I'm going to, of course, explain, but just a little, give it a little try. Will you all read up about it and come, and then we'll discuss it in the next class?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay. So we'll come back to this. Okay. And now let's just discuss the remaining three rules, the remaining three definitions. What do you mean by rules? We've already discussed. What do we mean by rules?
Ma'am, डिटेल्ड प्रोविजन.
ऑर्डर्स के अंदर सारे रूल्स दिए गए हैं. ठीक है, तो ऑर्डर्स कहां पर दिए गए हैं? वेयर आर द ऑर्डर्स गिवन इन द सिविल प्रोसीजर कोड? दे आर गिवन इन फर्स्ट शेड्यूल, सेकंड शेड्यूल.
फर्स्ट शेड्यूल मैम.
फर्स्ट शेड्यूल में ऑर्डर्स दिए गए हैं एंड ऑर्डर्स के अंदर रूल्स दिए गए हैं. ठीक है, सो दीज आर द रूल्स व्हिच आर गिवन इन दिस थिंग. एंड अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, in the when you look at the sections part also of the civil procedure code, in part 10 you have a part called rules. Okay, so isme there are there is high court can also make rules under certain provisions of the CPC, and isme do teen idhar diye gaye hain. So if you read out Komal, can you read out section 122 of the civil procedure code?
Yes, ma'am. Power of certain High Court to make rules. High Court, not being the court of judicial commissioner, may from time to time after previous publication make rules regarding their own procedure and the procedure of the civil courts, subject to superintendence, and may by such rules annul, alter or add to all or any of the rules in the first schedule.
See, now if I want to, now CPC tells me कि I have a power to impose cost. ठीक है, और मैं किस तरीके से कॉस्ट इम्पोज कर सकती हूँ वो मुझे सेक्शन 35 में दिया गया है. सेक्शन 35 का कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग ऑर्डर कहाँ पे है? ऑर्डर 20 में है. तो आपको दिया गया है कि किस पार्टी पे आप कितनी कॉस्ट इम्पोज कर सकते हो. ठीक है, बट आप फिर भी देखोगे कि दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट में थोड़ा डिफरेंट वे होगा, पंजाब एंड हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट में थोड़ा डिफरेंट होगा, बॉम्बे हाई कोर्ट में डिफरेंट होगा. सो व्हाई इज देयर डिफरेंस इन दीज हाई कोर्ट्स व्हेन सिविल प्रोसीजर कोड इज अ सेंट्रल लॉ?
And their respective high courts make the changes.
So because the respective high courts also have certain rules. So you have Punjab and Haryana High Court rules, you have Bombay High Court rules, and you have Delhi High Court rules also. So when the things that we talk about in CPC are also spoken about in the rules of the respective high courts rules also. तो वहाँ पे adjournments के बारे में, cost कैसे impose करनी है, उधर उस तरीके से detailed rules दिए गए हैं. So and that is the same power which is given here also. High courts also have the power to make certain rules. ठीक है, तो ये जो हमारा लॉ है ये लेजिस्लेचर ने lay down किया है, but the rule making power, which is also called delegated legislation, as we refer to it in administrative law, delegated legislation मतलब कि आप पेरेंट एक्ट तो आपका लेजिस्लेचर ही हमेशा देता है, पर डेलीगेट कर देता है फर्दर पावर्स की आप कि डेलीगेटेड लेजिस्लेशन आप कर सकते हो which is within the broad contours of the parent act. मतलब you cannot You cannot make a rule which goes against any substantive provision of the Parent Act, but आप छोटा मोटा which is in consonance, which is on the same page as the provisions of the Parent Act, you can make rules. So likewise, High Court has been given the power to make certain rules. ठीक है? So with respect to cost, adjournment, summons कैसे issue करना है, summons की delivery कैसे होगी, all these things that we study in CPC, आप different states के High Court के rules में भी देखोगे. Many a times the provision are same, many a times they made one or two small changes here and there. ठीक है? तो उस तरीके से rules यहाँ पे defined है कि rules are included in the first schedule as well as under any of these sections यहाँ पे certain institutions have been given to enact rules pursuant to the provision of the Civil Procedure Code. Right? Yeah, any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now, quickly, what do you mean by shares in a corporation?
Ma'am, share is basically a way of like owning a particular amount in a company. It's an instrument through which the general public subscribe to the share capital of the company.
Exactly. तो आपका equity आ जाएगा, debentures आ जाएगा, bonds आ जाएगा, ये सारे क्या हो जाएंगे? Shares in a corporation आ जाएंगे. ठीक है?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है? And signed का मतलब क्या होता है? Does it only include signature or does it also include a stamp?
Ma'am, it includes stamp.
It includes stamp.
ठीक है? Normal English में हम देखेंगे signed का मतलब होता है it includes signature. But CPC में यहाँ पर definitions में clearly बोला हुआ है signed also includes stamped. तो आप कोर्ट में देखेंगे when you become a judge you will sign your judgments. पर वहां पर एक स्टैम्प भी लगा होगा, एक सील भी लगा होगा आपके कोर्ट की. ठीक है? तो साइंड इंक्लूड स्टैम्प. जब आप साइन करेंगे आपकी साथ में एक सील लगेगी, एक स्टैम्प लगेगा कि आपने साइन किया है. आपके कोर्ट while you were acting in this court, when you were a metropolitan magistrate in the 30 हजारी कोर्ट, तब आपने ये जजमेंट साइन की थी. उस चीज का मोहर लगेगा, स्टैम्प लगेगा, सील लगेगी. सो साइन इंक्लूड स्टैम्प. राइट?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है? So we're clear. We are done with the definitions part. We will start with
Ma'am, why is it mentioned that save in the case of judgment or decree?
Save in the case of judgment and decree, it includes stamp.
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you think it is mentioned like that?
Ma'am, I think in case of judgment of and decree, it includes stamp.
What
Or
else?
it is other than the judgment and decree, all the other things where it is mentioned it is signed, then it also includes stamp.
No, that's not. Anybody else would like to give it a try? Anybody else? What do you think? Okay. Let's discuss it in the next class. We're already done with today's class. Let me come back to in the next class. We will then discuss from section 3 onwards. We'll complete the definitions. We'll discuss these two doubts from the definitions part, and we'll discuss from section 3 onwards. All right, guys. Any other doubts?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night, ma'am.